It is my pleasure to talk about two projects we have in California, and that is, I put two names of real people and then the rest is the et al., which are the important parts of this project. So we are looking at microflora of two parks, national parks, Yosemite Park in the Sierra Nevada, and the next one is Point Reyes National Seashore, just north of San Francisco. And it's not just seashore, it's land mainly. So we're not looking at fishes and lacteria in the sea, I've just learned. So the goal of our projects is very simple. We want to know what microfungi are in those parks, as always. We also want to involve other people, educate the general public, involve the local mushroom clubs and mycologists who are not professionals but spending a lot of time on mushrooms anyway. And we would like to be able to disseminate those data via the web. The means of those. We have two different models for forays. We started out with microblitzes, so big public events in Point Reyes, and we also have lab excursions and small forays. People go there on their own. And Yosemite is a totally different kind of park. It's further away, doesn't allow for big public events. So we have small group forays, and I'll get into that much later. And we have also had one student foray there so far. So we ask people to photograph the specimens, make notes, keep a voucher. We keep vouchers. And we also want sequence data. We are the ones that are really into barcoding, getting at least ITS sequence data for as many specimens as possible, and optionally, if needed, other markers. And as I said, we want to use the web. So we use Google Docs and Mushroom Observer. So I'll tell you a little bit about those microblitzes, how they have been organized. So we had 5 of them from 2005 to 2007 in our mushroom season, which is December, January. Well, yes. And David Rust actually was in the room there. He was the one who started or initiated it and asked about, well, can we have that thing? Because he wanted the Mycological Club, the MSSF at that point, to be more involved in scientific endeavors. So, as I said, general public invited, participated. Local mushroom clubs helped out. We have 4 of those now. And we didn't send anybody just out in the wild on their own. We gave them instructions, we gave them labels, we gave them wax paper bags, little salsa cups to keep their small specimens, and they came back and then the specimens were centrally organized. And then the next day we tried to sort, dry, voucher, and identify as much as possible. And that's what it looked like after the first one. So that was Inocebi hell or heaven, depends a bit on your perspective. So in general, we can say after these 5 big forays, well, the big showy mushrooms, we have covered them. When the ones that fruit regularly, they are definitely in our collections now. Boring mushrooms, not so much. Small ascomycetes, definitely neglected, not even looked for. And corticoid ones, so these crust fungi, thanks to Tom, we are really getting there. We are turning branches around and bringing them into the lab, just look at dogs. So yes, we are doing those now. So far the results, we are increasing our number of species with every microblitz. So we started out with knowing, oh gosh, it's off. All the numbers have gone. So anyway, we have something like 500 species collected. We started out with knowing something like 100 from the park. And if you do a chow estimate on that, so there should be something like 900 species in this area. So we have still 400 species to collect, I think. And of course, as all these forays and every inventory shows, there are lots of things that only collected once, so around a third. And then a small number is really common, and you see those everywhere. Okay, so that was Point Reyes, where we had these microblitzes. Yosemite, we had a different approach. So we have permits, which are for around 30 people, I think, so they can go into the park when the conditions are right. The problem with Yosemite, it's further away, as I said. It's also much harder to get at the right time. So that the mushroom season is much more tricky, much more weather dependent because it's a high altitude. So it's in spring, and then if you're lucky as well in August or in autumn, and sometimes after the summer thunderstorms. But if they don't come and the snow comes early, then there's no season after spring. And we use Google Docs to get a data sheet and an Excel sheet for keeping track of what we have collected there. And we have been doing that in 2010 and 2011, mainly. I don't think there's many this year. Did I miss something? So, and the numbers are here are quite fuzzy because we haven't really a good idea about it. But these are ballpark numbers, 750 collections, a load of species. And there we had some idea about what has been found in the park before because the park has a herbarium, a small herbarium. So most of it, what we've been finding is new to the park. And we have been starting sequencing these collections. So talking about sequences, I will change gears and do more taxonomy because that's what I do. So I want to show you our results of two very common species. So the first one is what we have been calling Pluteus cervinus. And we have sequences from the two parks. In green is from Yosemite, in blue are the ones on the sea. So we have 4 different things. And thanks to Alfredo Justo and his collaborators, we know what real Pluteus cervinus is. That's not what we have. We have different species. And hopefully, perhaps we get names for them, perhaps we don't. There's still a project in progress to sequence type collections in this group. So there might be more names, more European names. Pluteus is an exceptional genus because the species are often widespread. And that's, so Pluteus cervinus is in North America and in Europe, and the other ones as well. So it's different than most other groups, as far as I can tell right now. So we know it's not Pluteus cervinus. We don't know what it is. And the other project is about Helvella lacunosa. It's a very common species on the west. And we use this name. It's a very common species in Europe. When we started sequencing, we realized we have 2 different things at least. So they're in both parks, in blue and green, same colors as in the other slide. And there are ecological differences between the 2. We started out comparing this with one sequence in GenBank, which was way off from the lacunosa, and then we asked for more material. We still don't know what European lacunosa is, so we don't know whether this is really different or no. We do know we have 2 species, and there is a poster on this on Monday evening, so you can look at the other things about this. So when we have done the sequencing, we looked at this list of these 10 very common species. So we have these common species in Point Reyes. These are the number of collections we have of records. And then we look from how well are these names? How good are these names? Are they still holding up? Well, we were smart. So we said Armillaria mellia group. Yeah, sure. It's not Armillaria mellia. It's Western North American Armillaria mellia. It's not cervinus. Lacunosa, probably not. Hypholoma fasciculare, we don't have data, so we don't know that. Yes, definitely. This Lacarian name is fine. It's a Western species, so it matches sequences. It's all right. Inocebi sororia, yes, Western species. No, no, no. Yes. So from these 10, very common species, without vouchers, we would have used wrong names all the way. So, beautiful project, bottlenecks, definitely. Yes. Data management is a bottleneck. I mean, we have now 3 places where we put the same kind of data, which is, yeah, it's not very smart. So we have a herbarium database, we put them in Mushroom Observer, and we have also this list in Google Docs. Web page, we started out with a web page for Point Reyes with all the specimens photographed. That was a nice project, but we didn't keep that up. Collection management is a bottleneck. Yes, we have more bottles in the cabinet. Sequence data. So as I said, comparison sequence data are hard to get. Material is also sometimes when you really want to know what it is. It's also not easy. And then having all these data together. So we haven't really figured that out. And basically what we didn't have anybody working on this, basically. And we didn't have much money to do it. So that person power is, I think, the main bottleneck. But we get something out of these bottles. So we have results and achievements. And besides those lists and vouchers, which, you know, is the practical thing, there are lots of other things we get out of that. Enthusiasm, involvement. I mean, people are still asking for, when are we going to do another microblitz? And this is their project, right? They contribute to knowing more about these places. I think that's very good. Outreach to the general public. One of the spin-offs is part of the website for Point Reyes, done again by David and Debbie. So, you know, that's what is important. We have new species described. We are slowly working on that. Several more in the pipeline than those 2. Increased awareness of fungi with the park people. I think that's a very important plus. And for ourselves, we just know much more than when we started. Because you don't stop at those borders. There's this real estate, but there's more about it, around it. So you keep looking and getting more and more involved with those boring mushrooms we would never have looked at without such a project. So in conclusion, for us, voucher specimens and sequence data are an absolute must. And I would say, especially for species which we considered common, but in the same way for more rare things. These projects would not have been possible without citizen science, amateur mycologists, or whatever you call them. And also without student projects, we wouldn't have any sequence data. Sequencing students. And also you have to have someone who says, yes, we are going to do this. You need some driving force or a pulling force or a pushing force, whatever you call it. But you have to have someone who believes in it and is enthusiastic. And we did not have much money to do it. We have some support, but even with restricted means, such inventory projects and the sequencing were possible. So that was a very big plus. And with that, I will say thank you for listening to me. Oops.